Hello and welcome again to another episode of How to Avoid Murder and Other Awkward Situations. I am your host Dave, and with me always is the lovely Laura. And tonight, we're going to discuss something gruesome and something horrible. We may laugh, we may make some jokes, we use gallows humor here. It's not for the faint of heart, you may be offended. And if you're a delicate boy that plays the drums in an alt-rock band from Chicago, you will be offended, and you probably should listen to something else, something that decent folks listen to. I wouldn't know, because I'm not listening to it. And so, without further ado, let's proceed. Welcome again to How to Avoid Murder and Other Awkward Situations. Tonight, we're not avoiding anything awkward, just murder. And for those of you that are new, here's what we do in this show. Me or Laura, say hi, Laura.
Hey there.
Eating ice cream. We will present a set of facts about some horrible incident that the other person doesn't really know anything about. And it's kind of fun to watch one of us react and one of us tell the story. And you, the listener, can react or yell or, I don't know, do what it is you do out there in listener land. It's your own thing. And that's sort of the premise. We don't really lead with what happened. We're going to build up to that. And tonight we're going to talk about Elyse Pahler. Or Pahler.
Let me see.
P-A-H-L-E-R.
I would say Pahler.
Pahler? Mm-hmm. Elyse Pahler. Now, that name probably doesn't ring a bell. This was the satanic sacrifice in 1995 in a little town in California called Ariel Grande, who is not the hit singer Ariana Grande.
Ooh, a lot of bad shit happens in California. Seems like such a sunny place.
Does it? Seems like it's more of a...
It's sunny, but it has a dark undertone. A
that,
lot of cults, a lot of serial killers. Go on.
There's really no punishment for anything in California either, as you know. I mean, you can rape, murder, kill.
Free love.
Small sentences. Well, anyways, Elyse. She was a 15-year-old girl living in Ariel Grande, California, and in their freshman and sophomore year of high school, some bad shit happened. And I'm going to tell the story with a different angle. You may have heard about this in the media as the Slayer case, where after her death, in the conviction of 3 individuals, her parents sued Slayer, saying that they inspired her murder and other events that surrounded her death. And to me, when I looked into the story, that was really the least interesting part about this. And
what was the date of this?
1995.
95. Because weren't there some cases in the 80s? Didn't Judas Priest get sued and
Ozzy Osbourne, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, Judas Priest for sure.
That was a murder. No,
Suicide Solution,
that was it.
I think. Well, and there's also a case where they actually had backwards subliminal messages on the record, but the judge didn't. This wasn't the case here. And I'll get into
this was about 10 years after the whole satanic panic thing.
Yeah, and again, this is probably one of the most horrific stories, murderers that I've looked into, and let's get into it. So, Elyse lived in Ariel Grande. She had a wonderful house that her dad had built. He was a builder, kind of in a rural area in California. This is not too far from the ocean. It's south of San Francisco, as everything else is, but it's in Northern California. And she was the oldest of 4 kids. Her parents were fairly normal. A few odd things here and there. She was homeschooled for 6th and 7th grade, and then she went back to public school in 8th grade. And she had some issues in junior high, where she was sneaking out, smoking pot, and her parents put her into rehab. And
so homeschooling was probably to keep her safe, keep her out of trouble.
Well, in 6th and 7th grade, they don't really get into that. I mean, I don't know why they would do that, but...
I mean, you were sent to a different school for middle school to keep you out of trouble, right? Not that you were a troublemaker. I'm just saying that's a dangerous time. That must have been why they homeschooled her.
Maybe, yeah. I have no information on that.
I'm just speculating.
It seemed kind of odd based on everything else here, because these parents didn't seem too hands-on. But again, I don't want to I mean, they gave her a room in her house where she had these French doors that she could walk out of, and which leads us up to what happened here. But anyways,
that's why you put bars on the windows and doors if your teenage daughter's
yeah, I mean, this story is, my angle here is basically this is going to be about two groups of kids, 3 boys and 3 girls, all in high school, and the events led up to a tragic, well, a murder of Elyse. So, I edit some of this stuff out right now, but so backing up. So Elyse had 2 very good friends, Angel Catrini and Shannon Plotner. This was a trio. They did everything together. They were friends in 8th grade. They were, sleepover buddies. They'd make lists of cute boys. Your basic teenage girls. And of the 3, Elyse was more or less the wild one. She was a stray. In the rules of 3, the Shannon and Angel were the pair, and Elyse was the
third wheel
or odd person out. But they were good friends, obviously. But she would sneak out, take more risks, and she'd come back and tell her friends about what she had done, and they'd laugh and giggle. These weren't innocent girls, but they weren't bad girls either.
Crackheads or anything.
No, not crackheads.
They were just...
Yeah, and they were all of them were virgins,
wild.
which plays into the... I mean, slightly wild. I mean,
they were sneaking out. These are all things I did in middle school.
Right.
Sneaking out, drinking, smoking in the woods.
Right. And so in 8th grade, her parents put her into a rehab center for a little bit, the Mariposa Community Recovery Center.
Wow.
And there she met a young man named Jacob Delashmut. And if you want to look at the pictures here, which we'll have posted on our blog.
Horrible to see pictures.
He is the gentleman on the far right.
On the far right, okay.
And he has a kind of a dumb, doughy look to him. He's not the smartest guy in the world.
He's kind of a good-looking, blandly good-looking teenage boy.
Right.
Just sort of
nothing special, no neck tattoos.
No,
yeah.
Doesn't look particularly
anything.
Okay.
So they meet in rehab in 8th grade, and then the next year in high school.
Everyone I know who went to rehab as a teenager met horrible people there.
Yeah.
Horrible, terrible friends that were far worse than the friends they already had.
I guess the moral of the story is don't go to rehab.
I guess.
Yeah, just stay dirty. I'll drink to that. Okay, so anyways, 3 girls, freshman year of high school. You got Angel, you got Shannon, you got Elyse. She recognizes Jacob from rehab, and he's kind of with a weird crowd, kind of like the skeevy burnout crowd. In fact, his best friends were a guy named Travis Williams, Royce Casey, and Joseph Fiorella. And they had a band called Hatred. And these guys would play death metal. They worship like the Metallica, the Slayers, the thrash metal type things.
It's a pretty good name.
It's a pretty good name. And the youngest of the group, Joseph Fiorella, was kind of the leader of this group and the band. And Joseph was obsessed with the occult.
Which one is he?
Joseph Fiorella is the one on the far left who looks like he's about 10 years old.
Oh my God, really? I was going to say this guy would have been the leader because he has a little mustache and he looks the oldest.
Casey, that's Casey. Yeah.
Okay.
It's Royce Casey, the one in the middle.
This is the leader? Wow. Oh, look at his cheeks are all pink and rosy.
He was barely in the puberty. Don't worry, it only gets worse.
Oh my God.
So, his mother was a born-again Christian. She had previously worked for a pro-abortion group, and then she converted to Christianity. Now she was a pro-life, Bible banger. And he had a brother who was later convicted of murder himself, a non-related issue. Oh, yeah, this whole thing.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, his story was actually national news as well, too, where he got ripped off in a pot deal and tracked down the drug dealer, set him up, and just killed him in cold blood, and he's doing life in prison right now.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That mother did something wrong.
Well,
sorry.
Again,
I don't always think... I don't really tend to blame mothers for killers. That seems extreme. I'm just assuming this guy did something bad too.
He did. What he did is... So he's obsessed with... Again, this is the mid-'90s. We're at these guys are at the beginning of the internet age, but prior to that, he was going around buying occult books, ordering them, like from the back of Rolling Stone. He had this large collection of satanic literature.
Ooh.
A large collection. And...
A
library.
Like Satanism or like the occult?
Satanism, the occult. I mean, it's hard to distinguish the two, I guess.
Is it? Okay.
I mean... And then, right around 94, 95, they were getting online. And they were obsessed with going online, going to all these chat rooms, talking about Satanism. And they got this idea from these chat rooms that they should sacrifice somebody.
Oh, my God.
And they would write songs about it. And they listened to a lot of Slayer.
A lot of black candles and have a lot of Ouija boards.
No. What they would do is they'd sit around, smoke weed, use crank and speed.
Yikes. Drawing pentagrams.
Yeah, and then they would watch River's Edge. over and over and over again.
A great movie.
A great movie, but
really disturbing.
Not one that would really inspire you to commit a crime, though, I think. I mean, to me, it's like...
No, it's fucking bleak. It's bleak.
It's like the
people... And it makes you, like, really quite... Like, you're like, oh my god, teenagers are horrible.
Yeah, and these were...
If you haven't seen it, you should watch it.
These are horrible teenagers anyway, so, yeah. So, anyways.
Teenagers.
Joseph's kind of... He's the young gun, the leader, and these 4 guys are hanging out. They're going to these chat rooms, and they're basically talking with other people on the internet about sacrificing virgins. And, Slayer, which I'm kind of a fan of, and I've seen before.
You have?
Yeah. They have a lot of song at a festival. They have a lot of songs about everything from necrophilia to, fighting your way into hell, fighting out of hell.
Did they have all their album covers had like skeletons, like angels of death and things on them?
A lot of them
did,
was
that somebody else?
What do you think, like Iron Maiden? Or?
No, God, no, not Iron Maiden. No. Yeah, no, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I didn't listen to death metal much.
Well, they were more thrash metal than death metal. I mean, they don't have the rah, 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 rah kind of voice. Well, I mean, a little bit, but not so much.
Not that
it's
indiscernible growling.
No, it's more screaming and things like it's more in the neighborhood of Metallica, Megadeth. Only
more hardcore.
They're the hardest of those bands. Yeah, they're definitely. They have some great stuff. Their most accessible thing is called Seasons in the Abyss. You should check it out.
They were like pretty mainstream. I mean, they weren't. Right? I feel like every teenage boy I knew listened to Slayer.
They knew about Slayer.
They didn't. So edgy.
They never had a song on the radio.
Right.
I don't think they had any videos released, but like,
it wasn't like you couldn't walk into the music store and buy.
No, you could. They were more hardcore than Metallica. They were less. I mean, like Anthrax. There was Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer.
Yeah, I loved Anthrax.
Yeah, I'd say they're.
And I loved Metallica.
Yeah, I mean, Metallica was always the more palpable commercial of the bands. Slayer was speed metal. Yeah, they were. Yeah. They had an amazing drummer named Lombardo, but we're on a tangent. So
that's okay. It's okay. It's okay to be on a little bit of a tangent.
A little bit of a tangent.
Remember, if you don't like tangents, then you should probably not listen to this podcast.
I saw Typo Negative and Pantera play together.
Oh, Pantera.
Yeah, that was. Again, that would be a good story.
I loved Pantera.
Dimebag Darrell got shot on stage.
Oh my god! You know what we should talk about sometime? Is those Norwegian death metal groups, because those guys are fucking crazy.
I listen in the basement quite a bit when I'm lifting weights.
Oh my god! Yes. Okay.
So, anyways, let's create a picture here. These 4 guys, all the oldest is 17, youngest is 15, not being supervised, hanging out, chatting online, playing music in a garage, kind of playing around with the idea of the occult and sacrifice. And this is smoking weed, doing crank, doing speed. And I went to look this up. What's the difference?
What is crank?
What is speed? What's the difference?
I mean, speed to me is
they
just
distinguish
a generic.
the two.
Speed is a generic term for any amphetamine, I thought.
Well, they loved amphetamines. So,
but what is crank? It's just another.
I think let's just call it. Yeah, let's just call it an amphetamine. I'm not that
let's
cool.
Just call it all speed because I think it's just.
It's a distinction that makes a difference.
Street name for amphetamines.
These guys loved amphetamines. They loved speed.
Speed.
I didn't know anyone. I was never offered speed. Maybe people thought better of it.
I did know people who did speedballs. Does that involve speed, or was that like cocaine and heroin mixed together?
I believe it's cocaine and heroin mixed together.
It had the word speed in it. No, speed was not big in our community in our town.
There's some guys in Ipsy that were into it, but
I'm sure.
So, anyways,
I gave away our location.
Here's a little picture of these 4 idiots. You can picture these guys, and again, Joseph Fiorello, the leader, was a little bit jealous that Jacob knew Elyse. They had seen each other at school. They had talked, and she was a cute girl. And you can see from the picture here.
Yeah, oh my god,
she was the all-American. Blonde,
she's wearing like a soccer shirt in this picture.
Blonde hair, blue-eyed girl. Yeah,
beautiful. She's beautiful.
So anyways, that's what they're doing over at Joe's house. Now, meanwhile, Elise's house was the hangout for her and her friends. And here's what they would do there, typically. Her favorite album at the time was Beck's Mellow Gold. She would listen to that over and over. Yeah, she loved Beck. Interview with the Vampire was their favorite movie. They'd watch 90s. It. Yeah, they'd watch it over and over. They'd go out and camp. They would do these, pretty innocent things. And once high school started, all 3 of the girls the Angel and Shannon had both thought that Jacob and Joey were kind of creepy. Now, Travis was a little bit older. They didn't really know him. And Royce
is the one in the middle in the picture.
No, Travis is not pictured.
Oh, Travis isn't. Okay.
No, because Travis wasn't involved in this.
Okay.
And then Royce Casey was not. He didn't go to the high school. He'd been kicked out. Went to a different high school in a different town.
Red flag.
lots of red flags here. So, as it happened, they'd run into them occasionally, and there was some conversation back and forth. But Elyse's friends both said, "Look, these guys are bad news. Let's just stay away from them, and let's do our own 14, 15-year-old girl thing." And that's kind of
sound far more reasonable than my friends when we were 14, 15, frankly, saying that these guys are bad news, because I don't feel like that ever was said.
At one point they made a list of guys in the school from cute, and these guys were at the very bottom of the list of they just. They were scuzzy. They weren't cute. And again,
no, they're
this
not
is not a cheap town to live in.
I mean, they just look like kind of zitty, blank stare.
Yeah,
with cheesy little, barely a mustache.
And they're constantly. They're on drugs all the time. Like they would appear intoxicated. I mean,
what was it? So wait, what town was this again? It was
Rio Grande,
somewhere in Northern California.
Yeah,
was it like an affluent town or a middle of the road or what?
I looked up the real estate there, and everything's for around $1 million right now. I mean, so it's California.
So if you adjust for that, it's probably like middle class. Is that what you're saying?
It sounds very middle class.
Okay.
So I mean, these weren't.
Those are pretty hardcore drugs for guys who are 15.
Which makes me think there's some money in this town. I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
But again, if you're into the whole metal scene, I think speed was a big. The guys that ended up doing speed that I grew up with were really into like heavy metal too, to be honest. And that wasn't like my, I don't know. So maybe that was the whole thing.
Yeah, no, actually some of the guys I knew who did the hardest drugs actually had a death metal band. I'll tell you the name. I've told you the name. It was a brilliant name.
It's a good name. So, okay. Now, to make matters worse, Elyse, as I mentioned before, they had a big house, and she had a room that was kind of away from other rooms. And it had French doors that went to the backyard. And her parents, again, as a parent, you're reading about this, and they put her into this like residential rehab thing in 8th grade because they had caught her sneaking out and smoking pot. She was on pills like for either ADD or depression, but it turned out she was not taking the pills. She was storing them in her room. She had like 150 pills stored there, so she wasn't taking her medication.
Oh, I thought you were going to say she was selling them.
Nope, she wasn't selling them. No, just wasn't.
She was like mildly troubled, but her parents were aware and they were trying to
mildly troubled.
I
mean, she would have been just fine in life, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't sound.
Yeah,
it sounds a little bit. Actually, sounds kind of weird to send her to rehab for.
It could have been like a day trip though too. I mean, I'm not sure it was even an overnight kind of place.
Maybe it was like a little like short-lived,
like scared straight kind of thing.
Well,
too.
I mean, maybe she got in. Yeah.
No, it was just smoking marijuana and skipping class or things like that.
Crazy.
Which
I
think
snuck out of the house when I was 14 and got arrested.
You did.
Yep.
You are a bad girl.
No, I'm like relating to this girl.
I know. That's why I'm telling a story like this. I mean, basically, this is about you and your friends in junior high, and you guys survived.
Yeah. Okay.
So, school year's winding down. May, June, and again, Joey and Jacob had their eyes on Elyse at school. Her two other friends, her buddies, are constantly saying, "Those guys are skeevy. Stay away from them." And Jacob and Joseph kind of gave up, and they went to this place called the Pipe of Death. It was an old drainage pipe that was elevated off the ground about 1.5 miles from Elise's house, and they'd go there during the school day and they would smoke weed, drop acid, and use speed. That was pretty much how they spent their entire days. And so they were always...
Where the fuck were their parents?
Well, I mean, Joey's parents were around. His mom was around.
She was the born-again anti-abortion one? Okay.
Yeah, Jacob, I got nothing on, and...
I mean, I just feel like, were they kicked out of school at this point?
No, these guys weren't kicked out of school.
Okay.
No, Royce, I mean... They all had parents, though, that were involved. I mean, they just had no idea.
Ugh.
But they're hanging out in a drainage pipe about 1 mile... not far from Elise's house. She kind of lived in a rural area.
I'm trying to picture what you mean.
I couldn't get a picture of it. It was an elevated pipe. It was like a...
So, like, there was, like, a little ravine or something.
Well, yeah, it was near a ravine, but it was like a pipe that you could walk through, but it was elevated off the ground, and it was never... It was an anomaly. Like, it was placed there for flooding, and they never finished it, and it was just left there.
So it's like a big cement.
Covered in graffiti, and,
Gotcha.
yes, high school kids would go there and hang out and party.
Yeah.
So you can kind of... And they've since removed it. So... Near the last day of school, the three girls are walking home, and right near Elise's house, they're just kind of hanging out there. Jacob and Joey are just looking at her, and it began to look like Jacob might be a little bit obsessed with her. That was the girl.
Jacob's the one she met in rehab.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they look at her and they say, "Hey, come over here." And this is all four of them. Travis is there too, like, hey, look down there. And there's a hill, and she looks at the hill, and what's down there? Like, no, look. And
wait, it was just her, or is her and her friends?
no, her friends stayed off in the distance because they didn't want to go over and talk to them.
Oh, but they were standing nearby.
Yeah, and then they pushed her down the hill. And when she's down the hill, she kind of looks around, and I guess one of them came up behind her with a belt. And then her mom, who was outside too, ran over and looked down and said, hey, what's going on? And they said nothing. And Elyse came back up and went into the house.
Oh, my God.
And she said, that was weird. And her friends...
Wait, did you say one of them came over to her with a belt?
Yeah, at the bottom, a little bit.
She falls down the ravine, and one of them goes down the ravine and...
was holding the belt.
Was holding a belt?
Yeah. And, her mom came there and said, hey, what's going on? And her friends were off in the distance watching this. And they all thought it was a little bit... Elyse, it was odd, but she didn't think anything, just boys these are weird boys doing weird things.
Ugh.
And then she's talking to her friends later, and I'm going to edit some of this part out.
Yikes. That's creepy. I mean...
Yeah. Well, so it was a creepy thing. I mean, I can't think of any scenario where that's not creepy, but I mean...
But I mean, how often, like, when you're a teenager... iffy things happen. Creepy people say scary stuff to you, and stuff happens. And I feel like more often than not, teenagers they aren't going to say anything because they don't want to be seen as like, a goody two shoes or a tattletale or whatever. I mean, it's like this weird. Nobody wants to be the one that's like, hey guys, we shouldn't do this because we're going to get. No one wants to be that kid. So everybody just kind of goes along with stuff even if they have a really bad feeling about it.
No, and that's, yeah. I mean, so there's that incident right there. Just keep that in mind.
Yep.
So then school's out, and this is pre-cell phones, and the girls are talking, having fun, and one night, it's like in July, Angel is talking to Elyse. Angel's about ready to go to see her grandma for a few weeks. You remember in the 90s, you go away for weeks in the summer and you wouldn't talk to your friends or...
Right, you go on a family vacation, be freaking out. And
couldn't text, couldn't email, that sort of thing.
There was no social media.
So she's leaving that night, and so then Elyse says, yeah, I got a call from Jacob. He said he wanted to hang out later. She's like, and Angel's like, those guys are weird. Don't hang out with them. They're stupid. Like, not like they're dangerous. It's more
right, just like, ew, losers.
And she didn't even think twice about it.
Picture it.
So her friends are gone. She... gives then she tells Jacob sure. Jacob and Joey go to a party store and they give her a call from a payphone there.
Oh my
God. Like, hey, let's go to your house. We got some acid and weed. Let's meet up. And she says sure. So she wants to sneak out.
She's bored.
Get high.
It's summer.
I mean,
it sounds like mildly exciting to her. And probably the fact that these guys are skeevy and creepy is somehow appealing because girls are kind of twisted like that at that age.
And one of them had a car.
There's
I'm
some
pretty
kind of
sure.
edginess. You're kind of weirdly drawn to it. Ugh.
She's not quite between freshman and sophomore year.
So they were a little bit
One of them
older?
had a car. Well, yeah, one of them was 17 years old.
Okay.
They were 15, 16, and 17.
Okay.
And then while they're at the store, Royce Casey is there with his girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
And you can see Royce Casey.
In the middle? Okay.
Yep. And Jacob tells him, hey, you're going to come with us. You don't want to miss this. And he knew exactly what he was talking about, and they all left to go pick her up.
He ditched his girlfriend to go with his friends?
Yeah.
Okay.
To go pick her up. So what happened pretty quickly and pretty close to her house. She met him out, and they went walking behind her house down a hill, and they had these thick eucalyptus trees and groves there. And they sat on a stump. They were smoking some weed. And Joey, Josh stood behind her while they were smoking, took off his belt again, and wrapped it around her neck. Joey Farrell stood up and stabbed her in the neck 3 times. While that was happening, Casey grabbed her arms, so she was screaming, and then Joey handed the knife to Jacob. Jacob stabbed her, and then he handed the knife to Casey, and Casey stabbed her near the underwear, and none of these wounds were fatal. So she was bleeding, and she was begging for her life.
Oh my God.
Asking them why they were doing this.
Oh.
And they dragged her away from the stump and deeper into the woods.
Oh my God.
And she bled out there.
Jesus Christ.
So you can imagine this is, and again, this all happened. We know we have details of why it happened.
Poor her.
But here's where it gets worse.
Fucking terrifying.
This is in July. This happened.
Her poor poor parents.
July 22nd, 1995. No, it's way worse, Laura.
Oh my God.
Her
Did
poor
she
parent.
have siblings?
3 younger ones.
Oh God.
So all this happens less than a mile from her house. Okay? Mm-hmm. Her parents wake up in the morning and she's not there. They call her friends. Her friends are out of town.
Wait, had she snuck out to see them?
Yeah.
Where did her parents... Oh, okay.
She just walked out.
Gotcha.
She had bedroom doors.
Walked out her French doors. Shit. All right.
And so...
Oh, my God.
They call the police. And the police look her name and say, well, she's snuck out before. She's run away before. Had problems. Like, it's probably a runaway.
Oh, God.
And her parents are like, well, this feels really weird, really bad. But none of her friends knew where she was. And she had a habit of hanging out with other guys and sneaking out, that sort of thing. So the police aren't even looking into it. Days pass, weeks pass.
We're going to have chips implanted in our children's skin so we can track them.
Seriously. Yeah, she's missing for 2 weeks at this point.
Oh, my God.
And, they're getting really, they put an ad in the paper. They're begging the paper to run a story. Doesn't make the front page. And a 20-year-old gentleman who lived in the area was also missing, and so the police just assumed that she ran off with him and put no manpower into looking for this thing. Wasn't even being investigated. So meanwhile, these 3 idiots are feeling very empowered by this. And about a month after it happened, she's still missing. And it's being treated as her parents are just flipping out. I mean...
I cannot even imagine.
No, they think she's been a runaway.
It's a fucking nightmare.
No,
and that happened. It probably still happens a lot. That missing kid, if you're between the ages of 12 and 18, they're going to be like, well, he probably just ran away.
Yeah, but I mean,
hopefully it happens less. It feels like it happened a lot more.
If they treat this like a,
90s.
I mean, I think even right now, I mean, if someone's just missing like this,
if a 15-year-old girl went missing in our town, I feel like it would be pretty big.
It should be,
news.
Especially
they'd have an Amber Alert, right?
I don't know.
Don't they do Amber Alerts if
they're kidnapped? They're kidnapped. They think.
Oh, I thought it was missing.
Yes, they're with somebody missing. I don't know. I don't know Amber Alerts.
Okay. Anyway, sorry.
So, anyways, about a month later, Shannon and Angel, her 2 friends, I mean, they're both back from vacation, and they're like very weirded out by this whole thing.
And they probably felt like they would have known something if she had run away.
Yeah, but then this is where it gets creepier and creepier.
Okay.
They're camping out by a lake, and they hear this heavy metal music, and up comes the trio. Jacob, Josh, and Casey. And they ask if they want to go party. And Shannon's like, no, I don't want to go party. And they're like, leave us alone. But they're insistent, like, hey, let's go in the woods. Let's go in the woods and hang out. And and the Angel got a really creepy vibe. And Angel was the last person to talk to Elyse before she died over the phone. Okay. And they leave, and all of a sudden Angel remembers that day where they kind of followed her into the ravine. She's like, oh my God, all those guys were involved. So she calls the police. This is like in...
Good for her.
Well, I think this was in August, right before school started. And she talks...
So she got a weird vibe, and she remembered that. Creepy.
Tells the whole story to a deputy. Okay. And the deputy writes it down, but he didn't... Her parents had told the same story, too, to a different deputy. And they never saw the same reports.
Oh, my God.
So he just thought it was like just some person calling in with a random tip. Didn't put the 2 and 2 together.
Oh,
and it's still a runaway. So school starts. And everyone back at school is talking about her being missing.
She's been missing for like 2 months, right? Since July?
September.
Okay.
Yeah, then October, November. And her parents were convinced that her friends knew where she was and they were covering for her. Her grandma put an ad in the paper saying, I miss my granddaughter. I love her. Please have her come back. And meanwhile, these 3 idiots that killed her are kind of bragging about it. They're telling they're bragging online. They're talking to people. They're talking on their little user groups how they had killed this person, and they went back to the body almost weekly and had sex with it over and over and over again. And
my God!
She was sexually traumatized. The body was. I mean, the body was definitely. They definitely
had been pretty. That had to have been a pretty. Advanced level of decomposition by that point.
That night that they met them on the camping trip, about a month after it happened, they were just leaving the grove where she was.
Oh,
I mean,
my God.
They had her dragged away in this area where, I mean, like it was like right almost in plain sight of where everybody was, near her parents, everybody else, and they were going back there and doing these rituals, which involved them having sex with a dead body.
What kind of rituals?
Just these made-up satanic ones where
so
they
thought they were doing some kind of... So they thought they did a virgin sacrifice for some satanic reason.
Right. And part of that was desecrating the body after it was killed. That was so they were doing that.
I mean,
but again, these guys aren't real Satanists. They're just idiots.
No.
And they I mean, I think they didn't really comprehend, and they did this so they could become better guitar players. That was the actual idea.
They thought they made a sacrifice to Satan so that they could be rock stars.
Yeah, and meanwhile, while this was going on...
It would be pretty fucked up, just to interject.
Well,
Murder someone. I mean, and then 3 of them all participate in murdering someone in cold blood. And then all 3 of them are able to, like... I mean, I feel like a lot of people wouldn't be able to bring themselves to do that. And then they bring themselves to repeatedly have sex with a corpse.
Yeah.
Over a period of months.
Yeah, it gets worse, though, because there's a 4th person that wasn't there, Travis Williams, the person that, wasn't there that night.
Right,
and
he was I forget who he was. He was friends with them.
He was in the band Hatred.
Oh, he was in their band. Okay.
So, of course, the band Hatred's in a little bit of trouble now because in October of that year, Travis goes and murders a 75-year-old woman.
What?
Yeah. He was robbing her apartment. He was 17 years old or 18 years old, and he killed her, shot her, dead, like that. And he's arrested, and he's still in prison right now for that.
Jesus.
And Joey, the young one, was worried he was going to talk, and he was going to, but like they were telling.
But so Travis knew that they'd killed this girl.
Yeah, and it's likely Travis went back to the body and had sex with them.
Ew.
Parts of the rituals. That part isn't verified, but that's what we're looking at. So, yeah, I mean, again.
How is that?
Again, I direct your attention back to the picture of these 3 normal kids.
Oh my god! How do you have sex with a dead body?
I don't know, white privilege.
Ew.
I mean,
but I mean, it had to smell and just be terrible.
I guess. I mean.
Oh my god.
I mean.
Well, they were on a lot of drugs.
They're constantly using drugs, amphetamines, alcohol,
and
acid,
they were
and marijuana.
riling each other up. I think that like sort of group craziness.
Yeah, and again, there's a phenomenon where people that are into Satanism like this, it's almost exclusively like middle class white males that are into it's
I feel like the Satanists, like the Church of Satan, probably would like resent these guys being calling themselves Satanists. Don't you think?
This is internet Satanism. This is
like the actual Satanists don't worship the devil.
Well, look at bands like Slayer or say
guys
Rob
are like
Zombie or
devil worshippers,
Danzig,
right?
Manson. Yeah,
there's a distinction.
They like people that like dark things. Like, I think it's kind of interesting about medieval torture or sacrifices.
The occult is kind of interesting, but yeah, I mean...
And so, but a lot of
these guys they think they're devil worshippers.
Right, but Slayer or say Rob Zombie is a good example. They
have an interest in the macabre.
But they write songs about it.
Yeah.
But they're not like saying, go do this.
Right.
And again, their songs aren't part of it. Like, if Slayer does have songs about having sex with dead bodies and things like that. Because
I'm guessing the guys in Slayer would not dream of doing that. Probably would seem horrible. And
their whole point is like they're just fucking metal. They're there to say things to blow your shock you and your brains out. That's the whole idea of metal.
It's dark. It's shocking.
It's abrasive, and you say horrible things, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Again, people taking art fucking literally.
Right, and again, these are the first internet idiots out there too. So it's the age of the internet.
Right, the early internet.
But anyways, the body's rotting and being molested in this eucalyptus grove. Hatred's broken up at this point, and
because one of their members is in prison already.
Yeah, and again, it turned out. I mean, a lot of people knew about this. They don't know how many, but people were afraid. They were using this to get laid. Other girls knew about this.
Oh my god!
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean,
this phenomenon, which of course, ironically, River's Edge.
Well, which they
kids knowing about some horrible thing and not telling the police, not telling anybody.
And some people said later they were afraid to turn them in because they were afraid they were going to get them.
Right, but there's a difference between were they threatening girls into having sex with them? So they were just getting
laid a lot
because people thought they were so fucking metal that they'd murder someone and were. Having sex with a dead body.
I know,
ew, God, what the hell is wrong with people?
Well, Jacob was also in one circumstance. One of Angel's friends slept with him to get some crank,
oh, God.
and things like that. But really, if you're a 15, 16-year-old girl in California, do you need to? I mean, you can get
yeah.
So they had created this bad boy image about them, and it was kind of a known unknown.
Do you think though that there is a possibility? Like, did people actually were they taking people out to look at the body, or were people? Because what if some kid had gone missing? And then there were these idiot guys who were like, "Yeah, we murdered her. She's in the woods." Would you believe? You'd be like, "What the fuck?"
No, they weren't talking. No one went out to see the body with them. That didn't happen. What they were doing is they were talking online about this and kind of alluding to it. almost subtly that Elyse Pahler had been sacrificed by them and they had taken care of it.
Right, but you're saying their friends knew.
Some of their friends did know.
But do you think their friends thought they were bullshitting is what I'm saying?
No, because it wasn't so much their friends knew. It was like these guys didn't have a lot of friends. Imagine the worst burnouts. They were just kind of alluding at some point that this had happened. Travis Williams knew.
Yeah, but if you're saying they were getting laid because of this, then
Yeah.
they obviously knew in person. This wasn't
created,
just all on the internet. So there must have been kids that they went to school with or whoever who they had told this
and again,
to or hinted
it's
this
20
to.
some years. I don't mean.
No, and
yeah.
I'm just wondering out loud, and I'm not expecting to have an answer, but I'm just wondering if people kind of didn't believe it. I mean, would you believe it if you heard that, or would you think these guys were full of shit and they were just saying this about this girl who had gone missing?
I wouldn't believe it.
Right. So I wonder,
but maybe,
which makes me feel a little bit better thinking that maybe they didn't
really know it. Yeah, but there was definitely guys afterwards in interviews that said, "Yeah, we thought that I didn't want to say anything about it because I thought they would come after me. I was scared of them, that kind of thing." So, anyways, it's January now, and then February. Royce Casey is a different. He's the outlier in this group. He's not with Josh and Joey every day. He's in a different school.
He doesn't go to their school,
and he starts going to church.
Oh man!
He finds Jesus, and
he's feeling bad. He's the only one with any hint of.
He goes to his pastor and says, "I've done something horrible, and I can't live with it anymore. And will God forgive me?" And pastor, "God will forgive me for anything." He said, "Okay."
And he tells him, his pastor's like, accept that.
He didn't tell his pastor. Then the next day he called the police and said, I know where Elyse Pahler is. I killed her. I can take you to the body.
Oh, my God.
And this is in March. So meanwhile, July 95 to March 96, not even presumed a murder at this point. They had completely gotten away with this. Nobody was looking for her. Her parents were worried, obviously, but she was a complete missing person. I mean, at this point, if they had actually disposed of the body, they never would have gotten caught. Jesus. And I mean, but they had essentially gotten away with this.
Right.
And if not for Royce Casey basically saying he felt guilty about it and came to Jesus literally.
Well, he had
not literally, but
glimmer of a conscience.
Oh yeah, and he's in prison right now. And I read some articles about him recently where he's doing these he did an interview. It wasn't about this, but he was part of some art for prisoner rehabilitation project. And he said, "Yeah, I'm here for murder. I did it. I can never give her back that life that I took. But I feel horrible about that. But I mean, I deserve. I mean, he's completely but he confessed to the whole thing, and he still got screwed over a little bit. Let me explain why. Right. So he confesses to this, and the police go out to the body where he shows them where it is. They gather the evidence. And then they go and pick up Joey and Jacob. And Joey, the young one, is just livid. He is angry. He's not talking to the police.
He's the one who looks like he's 10.
Yeah, they lawyer up. And Royce was the oldest one, I believe, and he was going to be tried as an adult. And he did a full confession. And so Joey, who is really the ringleader, and it turns out later...
only 15, right? Or
16? But apparently he was jealous of Jacob because he thought Elyse liked her, which is the reasons he targeted her. He was the first person to stab her. He pushed the whole thing. And his parents his mom... Here's why I know he had good parents. His parents got him a deal, and he's the one who actually confessed and pled to the court first. So he got a favorable sentence in this, not the guy that led the police to the body, Royce Casey, who didn't come from the same background.
These guys out of prison.
No, but he's eligible to be out in the next couple of years.
To the parole board. I asked them not to.
What's funny is California doesn't give you the release dates, but he could serve 26 years and then be out, I believe. And
so he didn't. So they did get tried as adults.
They all pled no contest.
Okay. Wow.
Because apparently, and I read a crime investigation book about this. The physical evidence that was there, was continuing to be left there, was so horrible that they would never survive a jury. They had semen of all three of them in and on the body, and they had gone back there, carved things into it. It sounds like.
Oh my God!
They were literally desecrating the corpse for months. And I mean, the sick thing here is beyond all this. This is all like near her house. Her parents were looking for her, and her dead body was being raped, within a mile of the house. And again, these three guys, it was the lone one, Royce Casey, who turned them in. So anyways, Joey, the one who was the ringleader in all this, gets the deal where he's the first person eligible for parole. Because he's a juvenile. He can't do life. I think he can do up to 26 years.
Oh, if you're a juvenile, you can't be sentenced to life?
Not at the time they were there. And you can't now. There's a new...
You can't?
You can in some cases, but I mean... Yeah, it really depends. I mean,
really? That's interesting.
You could be,
so
but...
if you're 16 and you murder someone in cold blood, you cannot get sentenced to life in prison, but if you're 18, you can?
You can, in California and Michigan, be sentenced to life if they enhance the sentence and you have a separate hearing to do that.
All right.
He bypassed that hearing by confessing to it, and he struck a deal. Because he struck a deal, Royce Casey, who brought this to the police, got no deal whatsoever. I mean, and I think he deserved a deal, but like, he was of the three.
He seemed like the only one who had any sort of remorse about it.
He wasn't part of the planning. He was literally there at a party store, and they told him to come with them.
Right. And
he was the last person to stab her. And again, when it all came down to it, Jacob kind of gave a full confession, but Jacob's confession was different than Royce's and blaming different people for different things. Joey never confessed. He remained quiet, And
he's the young one, Joey?
Yeah.
Okay.
And all the pictures of him in the courtroom, he just looks sullen and angry, like he wants to kill the people that talked. I mean, just...
So he's actually the most evil one, is what you're hinting at here.
Yeah, and he'll be the one that's out of prison first.
Good. What was his last name?
Fiorella. Joey Fiorella.
Oh, Italian. Paisan.
Yep, he and his brother are in prison together right now.
Are they
different
in the
prisons?
same prison?
No, different prisons.
Oh my God! Did his brother go to prison after him?
Yeah, 98. But but it's...
Yeah, I'm just looking up his picture. Sorry, go ahead.
It's hard to find his picture, though, because all the pictures of these guys are all three of them together. In almost every instant.
I'm looking for pictures of him now.
So... That being said and done, I mean, to me, the real horror of the story is that this body, she's missing for 6 months. The parents are agonizing, and she's just dead. And the police treat it like a runaway, not a murder. And the only reason it got solved was because somebody had a crisis of conscience.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys got away with murder. They really did for a while. And I guess that's why Joey's mad. So, and again...
Got away with murder.
But just the backstory with her two friends, and after it all happened, Shannon and Angel were both, people were making
jokes. Can you imagine?
Well, people made jokes about her constantly.
I'm sure.
And
oh my God.
They left school for weeks. They were upset, but people just kind of carried on. And she was the girl that died and got herself murdered. And even after these guys went to prison, they were still kind of put up on a platform as like these badass guys that did this thing. And
not that this is at all the same as murdering someone, but the guys when I was in high school who went on an armed robbery spree,
they come up a lot at this podcast.
First of all,
yeah.
Well, people did know about it while it was happening, and people who didn't even, and they were like a sketchy crowd. And I remember these girls who were like the clean cut, sweater wearing popular girls suddenly like rallied around them, especially when they got caught. Then it was like, oh no, they're gonna have to go to. They were all worried
Everyone
about
likes the
them.
bad boy.
It was creepy.
It was
creepy. Like they were all concerned about them. I'm like, these aren't your friends. You would have never even hung out with those guys. And suddenly they were kind of like, oh yeah, it's just creepy. I don't know what that psychological phenomenon is.
I'm just thinking about high school girls in sweaters now.
Sorry. You know what kind of sweater I was picturing? Remember those Gap sweaters?
The V-neck?
The V-neck Gap sweaters.
Yeah.
They were kind of like cream colored and they had like stripes.
I
remember had one, but it looked so wrong on me. I looked so ridiculous in any kind of preppy outfit. It just looked wrong. It was like socks on a rooster. Just
there was people that could pull that off though. That was a good look. Mm-hmm. And then because it really going to high school in the 90s as I did, it was pretty much flannel and baggy clothes for most of it, and then goddamn Britney Spears hits in 98.
I liked to wear like gigantic skateboarder jeans and then midriff tops. That was and like really chunky heeled shoes. I mean, I think this girl was exactly my age.
She is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then of her friends right now, Shannon.
It's like I'm picturing this being cast as a movie, and I'm picturing the people I went to high school with cast in these roles, and it's very kind of easy to picture it, and it's creepy as hell.
No, I remember you had a group of friends. There's about three of you. I picture sitting out, and Yeah, no, but it's just, but there's nothing that she was doing here that was that out of the ordinary.
She did not do anything that would have warranted getting murdered, or that you would even think would lead to that. It wasn't like she was doing anything. I mean, sneaking out into the woods with some guys from school to smoke pot. I feel like everybody did that.
Nobody was ready for this shit, though. You got this one kid, Joey Fiorella, really into the occult. Internet's a new thing, and the mind is so susceptible at that age with drugs and prodding and things.
And I think that at that age, I've read some stuff about like adolescent brains where they're really like their frontal lobes are not totally developed, and so things literally don't seem real.
But I mean, as a 15-year-old girl, which you were at one point, here's where I think I have a problem with it, and I'm just gonna say this is my own, I don't know, male mind thinking here or whatever, but like
after they pushed her down the hill, why'd she hang out with them again?
that's the thing. Like not like she sought them out after that. She called them up and said, "Let's party," and went out in the woods to drop acid with them and smoke some weed. You know, again, that hill thing, I mean, it was just a creepy thing, but like, nothing good's going to happen in the woods with you and 3 guys and drugs.
No.
But she didn't, I mean, but anyway, she was a virgin.
So, oh God.
I mean, she wasn't sexually promiscuous.
Oh.
And, okay. There's probably, I can actually remember scenarios when I was 15 years old or 16 years old, and there was like one lone girl there with 3 or 4 guys, and me and my dork posse were probably the most harmless guys in the world. But like, I mean, now, as you know, looking back on it, I'm like, looking at any situation like that, like I just assume you're gonna get raped and murdered if you're with 2 or 3 guys.
Oh my God, I know.
At any given time, so.
Ugh, I know.
Well, this is getting kind of dark.
Well, but I'm always interested in these crimes where it's like multiple people committing a terrible crime. Because here's what I always wonder. If they had not come together, if the fates had not brought these 3 idiots together.
This is the how to avoid part here, just, we're getting to that. But
if the 3 idiots, the fates had not brought these 3 idiots together, would any of them individually have murdered this girl?
It's funny you mention that.
Probably not.
It's funny you mention that. This is the mob phenomenon where none of these people were considered psychopaths. Like, they wouldn't have done this without other people being there with them. They wouldn't have operated privately to do this. It was the reinforcement of this shared idea of Satanism and metal, whatever you want to call it.
And when you have a group, any weird idea, if you're talking to other people about it and they're talking about it too, it normalizes it.
It does.
That's why the internet is such a fucking cesspool for perverts and everything, because you're like, well, this can't be that wrong. There's a million other people out there who, and that's what that phenomenon is.
Well, it's like, I think at some point every boy thinks they've discovered and invented masturbation, but these guys are out there with these really weird thoughts, and I just went with the masturbation thing in there, but they have these really weird thoughts, and they're finding solace online. It is normalizing, but these weird thoughts are about. These are the little chat room lists. I'm stabbing virgins, killing people, that kind of thing. And I mean, like, it was normal. This is none of them would have done this by themselves. And Joey, the young one, was pushing them to do this.
Right.
But he got him to do it.
It's like it was like the Columbine thing, where I just think it was clearly there's one who was kind of crazier than the other, and clearly the leader, and the other was kind of a weak follower, and they talked to each other about it so much it started to seem normal and like this kind of thing that made sense. And this is like the same thing. Like, clearly this one guy was kind of the leader. He had this idea. He kind of got his friends to buy into it, and they all and just by talking about it more and more, and it probably didn't seem that real to them. I mean, I think that teenagers really are they're. I read somewhere one time, and I wish I could remember more details about what this. Sorry, I'm really tired.
You're fine.
I sound drunk. I'm not.
I'm still scared.
But they were... But,
the one teenager I know right now I'm kind of scared of. She's going to be very mean sometimes.
She's kind of surly.
Yeah.
No, but I read something one time. I was reading about, like, adolescent brain development, and that was when they were saying that their frontal lobes aren't developed until, your adolescence, which for males, by the way, is, like, sometimes into, like, your late 20s, which totally makes sense. So things like being impulsive and not having a real good sense of
I've read
consequences and say that whole like feeling invincible thing that they say teenagers feel invincible, and they said that, and this is probably anyone who has any background in psychology would be like arguing with me. I'm going to say the wrong word, but that they're similar. There's psychopathy or whatever. No. edit this. Edit.
I'm edit a lot of this.
Their psychology is similar. Teenager psychology is kind of similar to like a sociopath, maybe, or a psychopath, in that they don't really like the reality and consequences don't seem completely real. They're not really thinking about. They're impulsive.
That's why they join the military. That's why the military recruits people that age, because you don't feel like you're going to die when you're 17 or 18 years old.
Right.
I mean, and again, go back to the River's Edge thing. It's just like, I remember in high school, this great teacher said he used to show platoon in film class, but then when we would inspire people to join the army, he's like, oh my God, you guys are fucking idiots.
Yeah.
Now, a serious question, though. If you and 3 of your friends happened to have murdered a really hot guy in the woods, let's say Brad Pitt, and he was capable of having an erection, would you go back and have sex with the dead body?
No, God. That's just disgusting.
Well, why not? I mean,
Ew.
it's Brad Pitt. I mean, it still counts. Yeah, that to me, that's the
really weird. Well, that's actually really weird, because it's like,
it was the ritual.
Not to say that murdering someone isn't weird and terrible. That is. But then the fact that they were all able to, let me just, without getting too graphic, they were able to have sex to completion so that their semen was on the corpse multiple times with a rotting corpse.
I guess you want to be the first guy.
I feel like that's got to be like
the second guy, because
a special kind of person that's able to do that. And there were 3 of them.
If you're the second guy, do you like wipe it down?
Ew, God.
Or do you just pick an orifice?
I always wonder that about like those gang rapes. I'm like, that is just disgusting. And this is like that, only it's a dead girl, and they did over months.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, again, that was their trophy.
In the summer in California.
Yeah, that was their trophy, though. I mean, they didn't take
anything back.
I know,
but they were able to actually get off on it, is what I'm saying. Like, that is bizarre.
They're teenage boys. You can get off on anything.
Well,
I mean,
I guess so.
No, I've never had sex with a dead body.
Poor girl. Okay.
No, I'm just saying.
Good. And you probably wouldn't have as a teenage boy, I'm hoping.
Honestly, I mean, maybe. I'm just saying, if there was I actually had this conversation before, and no, I would for either money, or if it was like a really hot woman, like really, like if she wasn't like rotting. I mean, like, I mean, let's say who was the hottest in the '90s? Alyssa Milano. Let's say she died of a drug overdose, and I'm working in the morgue that night.
And as a 15-year-old, right? Not now.
Well, not now. She's like my age. Yeah.
Stop it.
No, but she has a hot daughter.
So, maybe. Then, just, you said that this is the least interesting part, and it kind of is, but just tell me, like, a little bit about it. So, her parents... Well,
it's not the least interesting part, but, like, when you Google this name, like...
That's what comes up, I
want to, like, give a story, I want to talk about Elyse as a person.
So, her parents sued Slayer because they figured Slayer inspired this murder.
Yeah.
And were they successful?
No, they weren't. And they shouldn't have been, in my opinion. In my legal opinion as a lawyer. But, but, again, as a parent... Mm-hmm. I can't imagine. This is the most perfect thing I've read in years, because the missing child aspect, and then then beyond your worst fears are realized.
It's my worst nightmare.
And I don't fault them for suing Slayer, because like these kids were inspired, but like really the inspiration, it wasn't so much inspiration; it was the reinforcement of that. I mean,
right? Well, like anything, like any killer, and people are always trying to find the reason. Like, well, he had an abusive childhood. It's like, well, how many people have an abusive childhood, but they don't end up being a serial killer? It's the same thing. Well, they listen to Slayer, and Slayer inspired them. Yeah, but look how many other people listen to Slayer and didn't murder anyone and rape their body.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't... The crazy isn't coming from Slayer. The crazy is coming from somewhere else. This is a fucking crazy story. They should make a movie about it.
Well, they kind of did. Jennifer's Body, starring the... Megan Fox, who I would also have sex with a dead body too. I mean, but again, the movie isn't really about.
In the movie, was Megan Fox a virgin?
Sort of. I mean, it's the whole thing.
Come on.
Here's the thing. I hate to be this serious, but like when I learned about this and read about it, all the memories, all the tributes, it's like they don't really get into the whole humanity of Elyse, of her family, what they went through. It's all about how her parents sued Slayer, and
which is
Slayer
ridiculous.
lost.
Well, this poor 15-year-old girl,
that's the clickbait.
who was like experimenting with being a little bit bad, which is what teenagers do, and rebelling a little bit, and then sneaking back into her French doored bedroom,
so how do you
into her parents' home. How do I avoid it as a 15-year-old girl? Or okay, so let me just 2 parts. If you're a 15-year-old girl, and I'm going to try to impress this upon our children, you oh God, please, you have to be smart.
You set the alarm. You don't give them a door to walk out of.
And you do not hang out with kids that seem sketchy to you, that have pushed you down a hill. If you have a bad vibe and your friends have a bad vibe, don't hang out with those boys. Do not go for... I've just been telling the girls since they were tiny, don't go for the bad boys. Do not go for the bad boys.
Are you
going with the nerdy boys? They're going to end up being the coolest ones.
Well, except for me, I was a bad boy.
Someday. You were not a bad boy making cheeseburgers when you were supposed to use the grill.
I was not supposed to use the grill, and I did.
Oh, my God.
No, and also, don't be a blowjob queen. That's a big one, too. Yeah.
But Elyse Pahler doesn't sound like she was the blowjob queen.
No.
She was just sneaking out of her house. I mean...
She had French doors. I
snuck out of my... Okay, so I snuck out of my house at the age of 14 with two boys from my neighborhood who I did know, who were, like, mildly sketchy, but...
This is a story. This is a story at the end. Let's do that as the segue.
I wasn't going to tell that as the story. I'm just saying, this girl didn't seem like she did anything that extreme. And this is the thing. So as a 15-year-old girl, what are you supposed to say? I mean, how's a 15-year-old girl supposed to avoid this? Not hang out with the bad boys? I mean, how many stories do you hear, though, about terrible things happening to teenage girls, and it was like the captain of the football team? I mean, it's hard to know.
Well, the thing is, like, if you're going to use drugs as a teenager, you're probably going to do it in the woods.
Ugh. Stay the fuck out of the woods.
I just say, like, or use with a friend. Don't be the...
Here's the thing, girls. Here it is. Don't ever be the lone girl in a group of guys. And I think that's actually a good rule. Like,
yeah. And
I know, the girls who are off trying to hook up with the guy they like, of course you're going to want to be alone. But just, like, please, until you know him, and be safe, girls. But don't go out with a bunch of guys that you don't know by yourself. If she had brought her friends along, those guys wouldn't have done anything. They wouldn't have been able to. They were trying to get her alone, and that should tell her something. I mean, she probably didn't think that they were going to murder her, but I mean, you've got to be safe.
I don't think women have an idea what really goes into a men's mind. I mean, like right now,
I do, because I read so much fucking true crime. I'm terrified of men, and I think back now, and I'm like, oh my God. There's so many scary things, like even, even just normal dating, and like you meet, you don't know somebody very well, and then you go out with them alone, and you're like, they pick you up in their car, and you're in a car. I mean, things that seem pretty normal, but you think, that guy had been crazy. He could have just driven me out into the woods and murdered me. Is the reason you wouldn't have sex with a dead body just... you really couldn't, could you, if you're a woman? I mean, it's the opportunity. No, you could not. I mean, unless it was like, remember in Clerks when she has sex with the guy who was jerking off in the bathroom and dropped dead? Ew. You know what? Women, I do not know. I don't feel like that's probably as much of a risk. I'm sure there are women who have weird... I'm sure there are women who are necrophiliacs. But let's not get into that. That's creepy. That ship has sailed. I don't work in that field, so... Okay, so... How to avoid this as a parent, though? I mean, first of all... Set the alarm. Set the alarm. But here's the thing, and I've already been thinking about this. We have to change the alarm code. And it's got to be a code at night that we know that our kids don't know. So that they cannot come downstairs and turn the alarm off and walk out of the house. Instill a deep-rooted fear of the dark in the woods, which I think... Well, I've already instilled a deep-rooted fear of paneled vans into them. That's good. They are now scared. They'll be like, Mom, look, it's a white van! It's true. It's just, we gotta instill fear in them everything. We're gonna... The dog, although I had dogs, what the fuck were my dogs doing when I snuck out of the house? Well, they didn't know. They're your dogs, yeah. Yeah, they're like, I guess she's leaving. I don't know, you train the dog to... I mean, you can't really predict this kind of thing from happening here, but I mean, I guess... First of all, no first floor bedrooms. Well, not that you can't climb out your window. Her dad was the builder. He designed the house. Well, that was a really stupid design. You do not put doors to the outside. That's way too easy to sneak out. I walked down the stairs and walked out the front door. So... Parents didn't hear that? Their bedroom was the farthest away from... It was the farthest down the hall, and mine was the closest. I could have climbed out my window and jumped off, because there was like a little roof, and then I could have jumped off it and been okay, but I didn't. I just walked out the front door. I snuck out one time, a couple times. You had a tri-level. I had a tri-level. So I just opened the window, popped the screen, and then... But it was so horrible. I was like outside my house at night. I'm like, I have nowhere to go. I went back in. Oh, you didn't sneak out with anyone? I was just sneaking out. I mean, like, I was walking around a little bit. One time, one of my friends came over, this guy that liked me, and was throwing rocks at my window in the middle of the night. Yeah, except I didn't know he was coming, so And of course, no cell phones. So I just hear these rocks hitting the window, and I was scared out of my fucking mind. So what do you think I did?
Masturbated?
No. Ran into my parents' room, woke up my mom, and I was like, there's somebody outside the window. So she runs over, looks out the curtain, and goes, hi, Adam. I'm like, oh, shit.
Oh, Adam. Never
and
liked him.
He had to go home.
Okay.
Yeah, but Sneaking out of the house, I think, I don't know, an alarm. And you know what? You gotta, like, sleep like a, I don't know, what's an analogy for sleeping really lightly? You have to sleep really lightly. I don't have
sleep like a murdered Californian girl. Yeah.
Oh God. I know, and I need white noise, and so if I have white noise, then we really won't be able to hear them sneaking out.
Yeah, this is a sad one. I don't know.
This is really sad.
I feel like I've been like, I just want to get this done because like, I feel like normally I have more off-color humor or verbiage or things like that, but like, I just felt so bad for the parents. I read this, and for her, and for her friend. Anyway, her friends were fucked up too. One of her friends has actually died recently too.
Of what?
Shannon. It probably an overdose. Looks like at 34. We'll put a clip of her online. She looked like a kind of a fun person. I
cannot even imagine. I mean, I'm just thinking of my friends at that age. If something terrible had happened, it would have been...
Well, in our little community here, I mean, and actually, there has been a rash of more suicides in junior high recently. But not really.
There was a high school kid who was murdered this year.
One, yeah.
Which was horrific. Ugh.
Shot. But I mean, this is a fairly elaborate murder.
This is bad.
I mean,
this is bad.
Three people stabbing someone.
This is about the worst.
Oh, just.
I mean, this is about the worst. She first of all, she had
one knife too. By the way, they shared a knife,
which is always the thing that I feel horrible about when you realize that the victim. You know, not that it isn't horrible to be, like, shot in the back of the head, but then you think to yourself, at least they didn't see it coming, and they didn't feel anything. It was instantaneous. But this poor girl, she's with these boys, and then she sees and she knows what they're going to do, and then she bleeds out. So she was scared and in pain, and knew that these guys, who she didn't even really know, did this horrible thing to her, and she has no idea why. I mean, I cannot imagine a worse way to die.
Yeah, she knew him casually. I mean, she knew him a little bit. I mean, she had hung out with him a few times.
I don't know how I mean, if I were her parents, I would probably just completely check out after that.
Her dad was arrested about a year and a half ago for a road rage incident. And his defense, which I think is plausible, is that he's still suffering from PTSD from what happened to his daughter. And
bless his heart.
I mean,
I cannot. I would just be like, probably.
All right, should we do the story?
Yeah, this wasn't a very... This was a dark one. This is super dark.
Super dark. Oh, we got some necrophilia jokes in there though, which was nice. And you were full of spunk and vinegar.
Well, it's like, I mean, I remember those days those teenagers really well. And you know what are like really the most dangerous teenage years are those early ones, 14, 15. Before you can drive, you're a new teenager, you kind of have like something to prove.
I think you should have the police story as a brush with death. I mean, you could have
Yeah, that wasn't
based on this scenario here, you could have been killed very easily.
Sure, okay. Okay. I didn't have a cell phone, but I did have a phone in my bedroom.
Go on.
My dad we had a second phone line because my dad was an early internet user because he was in grad school. And so I was able to plug the phone into that line when he wasn't using the internet.
Okay.
I never used it, but anyway. So I had a phone in my bedroom. My friend Michelle called my bedroom phone and said, "Hey, we're gonna come in. Me and Andy and Anthony are gonna come over, and we're
Are you using fake names or?"
No, I'm not. But I'm not going to use their last
name.
No,
I'm just saying.
I don't think they would care even if they heard this. And they won't. The likelihood that they would hear it, I'm sure they would be totally amused, actually. Because nothing terrible happened. And these guys were guys I knew since childhood. And we all lived in the same neighborhood and stuff. Like, we were all a little bit. Michelle was actually a good girl. I don't know how the hell she got wrapped up in that. I really have no idea. The only thing I can think is that one of these boys must have had a crush on her and somehow convinced her to sneak out. So anyways, so they came to my house and, I don't know, threw a rock in my window or something. And I, walked downstairs and out the front door. And we just wandered around the neighborhood. And the boys were opening car doors that were unlocked and stealing change out of them.
Good move.
Really
it's a good move, yeah.
But unbeknownst to them, or maybe knownst to them and they just didn't give a fuck, I didn't know this, but there had been some actual break-ins, which then I learned later were other guys that I knew, older guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, there had been some actual...
The Sugarbush gang.
There had been some actual... there had been some actual break-ins in the neighborhood. So the police were patrolling a little bit the area, which normally they really didn't because it's a really safe area. Or maybe they did. I mean, I don't know. In the middle of the night, maybe. Anyways, though, so we were out for probably like an hour, and we'd walked like pretty far, and there was this big park with like a hill, and we were coming up the one side of the hill, and all of a sudden there were like these big lights, and then like a megaphone, and it's like, you know, and it was weird because it was almost like dreamlike. It took me like a minute. It took me like an extra second or two to process what the fuck was happening. That it was the police and that they were shouting at us to stop. And then they came, and I was 14, by the way. This was the summer after 8th grade, before high school.
Okay.
This was in August. And they came, that's neither here nor there, but it was the summer. Summer was, there's too much unstructured time in summer. So they came up, these two policemen came up behind us. They had their spotlights, and the boys later said that they had their guns drawn. I didn't see that, but I actually ran. And so there were woods on the other side of this hill, and I ran into those woods. But I was so scared that they were going to somehow come after me. Because the woods were really tiny, and I was going to have to come out on the other side and walk back to my house in the neighborhood. I was afraid they were going to catch me on the other side. I don't know what was going through my head. I turned around and came back out. And then my friends they had us all. So then I put my hands up. They made us all put our hands up, lie down, face down on the ground.
It's kind of hot.
It was terrifying. Then they patted us down, they had 2 patrol cars. They must have called another car at some point. Put the boys in one car, me and Michelle in the other car. And I remember Michelle's crying and holding my hand and singing along to the radio at the same time.
What was on the radio in the police car?
I don't know.
They had a radio on?
They had the music on. The police at this point were basically fucking with us, I realized later. Oh. Because they must have realized we had nothing on us. We obviously hadn't been they said that they had picked us up because they thought we were breaking into cars because there had been break-ins in the neighborhood, and someone had called and said they'd seen teenagers breaking into cars, which they had probably seen. Someone probably had seen my stupid friends opening car doors and stealing change. So anyways, they took us down to the station, and they told us, they took us down to the station. They took mug shots and fingerprints.
Senior pictures. Go on.
Uh-huh. And I remember Michelle, she was so beautiful, and all the boys liked her. And she smiled beautifully in her picture, and she looked adorable, and she tears streaming down her face. And I, as you can imagine, had my my most surly resting bitch face. I mean, I was just...
It's a really resting bitch. Maybe you're just a bitch, you know. You gotta...
Well, whatever, but...
It's ever the worst.
So then they had their question... I mean, Michelle and I, they separated us. So I'm sitting at a table with this policeman who was... questioning sounds more harsh than... He basically sat there and he's like, so you guys were, okay, so these are your friends. Mm-hmm. It was very mild. It wasn't threatening at all. He said, are you hungry? Need something? Want a hot dog? A donut?
But it could have been poison.
I know. They were very nice, but they called my parents and said... So my parents, who I now relate as the parent in this story and think, what the fuck? And I was 1 year older than our oldest daughter at this point. I know. So my mom gets this phone call at
She's so much better behaved than you.
3 a.m, and they say, this is so-and-so, and then blah, 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 police department, and your daughter has been arrested for breaking into cars. My mom's like, what? No, she's down the hall. So then she's like, hold on a minute. Puts the phone down, goes down to my bedroom, looks in, I'm gone. She's like, God damn it. So then she wakes my dad up, who my dad is the nicest man in the world, but can be very scary. Just scary demeanor when he wants to be. So my dad drives down to the police station at 3:30 in the morning.
God damn it, Laura.
I'm sitting there, and he comes in, and he's just like, oh, and Michelle's dad too. And Michelle's dad, also a nice guy, but with a super mean look all the time, very surly, but That was just his demeanor.
Resting dad face.
So, yeah, the two resting dad face dads come in and are just, like, shaking their heads, chuckling at us. And we're just like, we just know we're just screwed. And so, you know, and my dad's just, he's like ruefully laughing the whole way home. Laughing at me, Laura, I don't know what the hell you were thinking. And you know what my mom is the most upset about?
You sticking out?
I left the fucking front door unlocked. And at the time I was like, that is such a weird thing to be like, who cares? And now I get it. Because she was like, you left the front door unlocked. You know, someone could have come into the house. And I realized my mom was totally neurotic about locking doors and always has been smartly, because now
You're very
you
neurotic.
should always lock your doors.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to.
Maybe you want to meet somebody new and interesting.
Maybe you want Richard Chase to come into your house and
Fair enough. Yes.
drink your blood. That's a story for another time. But anyway, I was grounded for the
Dick
rest of the summer. The last 2 weeks of summer.
And that's how
It
you
was
avoid
terrible.
murder. Ground your punk ass daughters. Well, I'm tired, and this is
too.
a little bit darker than I thought it was going to be.
It's really a sad story.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing us all down.
Yeah, it's not,
I mean,
it's not a happy murder.
It is a podcast
Yeah.
about murder.
Yeah.
They're all pretty fucking dark.
I don't know, but
No, I think that it's important to make sure the focus still goes back to the actual person who gets murdered, and it's not always on the flashy, media-friendly lawsuit.
it's got to be that she loved the Melgo of the Beck CD.
And I totally I remember that album and Interview with the Family. I mean, she was exactly my age.
Yeah.
Oh my God, poor her.
So until then, guys, stay safe. Don't give your teenage daughters a backdoor exit. Get an alarm system, and
Yeah.
we'll see you next time.
Stay safe. Lock your doors.
Thank you once again for listening to How to Avoid Murder and Other Awkward Situations. If you're listening to this, that means you haven't been murdered, and we've done our job. Make sure you check us out on Facebook at How to Avoid Murder, or online on the World Wide Web at avoidmurder.com. And until next time, stay safe.